welcome back to another episode of the Dealing with Divorce podcast. Today our expert is Holly Norman. She is a certified divorce real estate expert. Hello, Holly.
Hey, Russell, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I know we know each other, but go ahead and introduce yourself for the people who don't know you.
Sure. So I am Holly Norman. I am the founder of Chris Alex Real Estate Group at RE/MAX Center, and I'm a residential realtor.
And one of the reasons we know each other so well is because you're a certified divorce real estate expert. What is that?
So a certified divorce real estate expert is an agent that is specifically trained in the crossover between real estate and family law.
All right. And what kind of training do you go through to learn to be that?
Yes, so it is an extensive training. Actually, just to get into the program to get the certified divorce real estate expert designation, you actually have to be interviewed in. So you're interviewed in by an attorney, and you're interviewed in by a founder. So, and then you have to reach all of these benchmarks as well. So they're not taking someone who's not already accomplished in the field and putting them into this specialty. So once you pass those initial application process, then it is an 8-week training program. And then it is, you take tests to pass out of that. And at the end, you have both a verbal test and a written test in order to qualify to get your designation. Then you can go on to Master Club, Master Club is additional weekly training that continues to offer support, and you're with other CDREs around the country. So there's about 200 of us total in the United States. I think the last count there was 7 in the state of Georgia. So it's not an easy designation to get, and there's not a whole lot of us out there, but it is the most intense training that I have had in any specialty in real estate in my 23 years.
And what's the benefit of having someone involved in the divorce process who's a certified divorce real estate expert as opposed to just like a person who does appraisals?
Right. Well, you don't know what you don't know, right? So for me, when I started really researching, I wanted to grow my skill set, right? I had some friends that I assisted who went through divorce. I'd had some other clients that I had assisted that went through divorce. And, you know, for me, it was like there had to be an easier way. There had to be a simpler path. There had to be some things that I was missing. So I wanted to increase my skill set. And what I find now that I'm on the other side of it, and I have all of this training, I have this knowledge, and you know all of the experience that has come along with that over the past several years, is that it's really an intense dive, and I know so much more now, and I just feel like from an advisory standpoint, I'm just so much more beneficial to my clients that are going through a divorce, and what that looks like and what their options really are and how to advise them. A lot of people have equity, and I see a lot of equity wasted, right? And a lot of times these people need this. This is how they start their lives over, and a lot of that comes out of the sale of the house, which is inevitable. So many times, not always, but many times it is inevitable.
How do you see equity wasted?
Well, so lots of things. So a lot of it is the fighting, right? So they unnecessarily fight with each other and don't get what they want. And honestly, there's a lot that gets paid out to attorneys because this fight will go on for years and years and years, right?
How can you help keep attorney's fees down?
Well, so a lot of it is while I'm not a certified mediator, there's a lot of mediation that goes on in real estate, right? So rather than paying an attorney hourly to go and mediate, when it comes to the sale of the house, not anything else, but when it comes to the sale of the house, I can really be of a huge benefit there, and it doesn't cost them anything extra. My compensation is my compensation upon the sale of the house.
So you're putting a lot of risk in your work on the front load.
There is a lot of risk in it. So we recently closed a case, and I think it was 14 months in the making, right? So there's a lot of outlay of work. So you got to love what you do, right? You absolutely do. Real estate agents take a risk. right? Whenever they're listing properties, they take a risk that if that property doesn't get to the closing table, that they're going to lose money, right? We invest money on listing properties. So there's always that risk. But if you like what you're doing and you don't give up and you stay the course and you've got clients who are willing to work with you, then you'll get to the finish line.
And so how long did you do real estate before you got into this specialty
About
area?
19 years.
Wow, and was that all in Georgia or?
All in Georgia. So I've been in real estate 23 years now, so 19 years, and it's all, it's all residential, and I started out as a buyer's agent, and you just kind of work your way up, and residential listings and working with buyers and sellers is just kind of second nature to me. So then it's like, where do you expand and where do you grow and how do you keep doing that? So I do a lot with new construction and with some builders as well. And then I wanted to get into this divorce aspect. So I started looking into that about 4 years ago. And I made the move. So do that. So that's a part of what I do. It's not all that I do. It's a part of what I do. But I really enjoy it.
How did you become interested in real estate?
So I'm actually trained as an interior designer, and that's what my degree is in, right? So
Okay.
I was a model home designer for one of the big builders.
Like with like AutoCAD and all that stuff, like the.
Yeah, that AutoCAD was a little bit later.
Okay.
A little bit that came into the program up at University of Georgia a little bit after I graduated. But so we had drafting tables. And
Okay.
We
my
got
my sister did it similar like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
With the drafting?
She's got pictures on her wall of the I guess the topological view and the front view and the side view with all of the lines connecting the diagram essentially.
Yes, exactly. We
Yeah.
used to have to hand draw everything.
Yeah,
So we
wow.
hand drew all of our elevations,
hard way.
measured everything out. It is the hard way. AutoCAD would have made life a lot easier, but it's good to know how to do it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I actually, it's very, very useful in what I do because I oftentimes will flip a piece of paper over and space plan a room. If somebody's like,
Absolutely.
I don't know how my furniture will fit, I'm like, I do.
Yeah,
So
you
let's
can help
just
them make
figure
their
that
vision.
out. Yeah. So it comes in handy being able to do it and do it by hand. Certainly comes in handy, but so I was busy in that realm, and it was actually one of my neighbors, and I think she asked every girl on the street. I really do. She said, we need a buyer's agent. It was her, and she had a partner agent, and they were the top two agents at the office up at Remax Center that was up the street, and they said, we need a buyer's agent. And she started talking to me more about it, and I'm like, that sounds great. I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to do it. I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. So I did it. It was a 6-week course. I spent more time learning divorce side of real estate than I did actually to get my actual real estate license. But it was a 6-week course, very intensive as well. And I hit the ground running. The day I got my license, I showed property that day. I didn't even know what I was doing. But she had me in there showing property, and she's on the phone with me, open the blinds, turn on the lights. I'm like, all right. And
Yeah.
we just kept going from there. I love it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And so when can somebody, I guess, get you involved? Can they do that before they get divorced, or is that something that's during the divorce?
Really, at any time they can. So before the divorce, right, I can give them some tips and tools on things that they can do. I mean, there's capital gains tax implications. There's all kinds of things, right, to know. There's also, there's some different provisions, right, where conventional loans in a divorce could be assumable, where typically they're not, right, only FHA and VA. But if you're in the midst of a divorce, that's something that is a real possibility. So I can come in at any part of the process. I'm a trained neutral, so I'm not really here to pick sides. It's not about, who's right, who's wrong. It's about, here's the issue at hand. We need to get from point A to point B. How do we do that in the best way possible? Preserve our equity so that we can start over our lives, right? They're going to go in different directions and start over their lives. So how do we do that and keep it as balanced as possible?
I feel like the thing you said just right now about the assuming the mortgage with the interest rates the way they've been, that seems like something that would be like a wide-eye moment for a lot of people. Like, whoa, okay, you got my attention.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, do you have any other examples of stuff like that little tips that you share with people and they're like, wow?
Well, yeah. So another one is capital gains taxes, right?
Uh-huh.
So capital gains taxes, when you are married and filing jointly, because right now most people have equity in their home. If you
Yes.
bought your home, longer than the past 2 years, you probably have some equity in your house. So if you're married filing jointly, the IRS will not tax you on the $500,000 in equity of that. But if you're single, it's $250,000, right?
Okay.
So if you're going into a divorce situation and you know that house is going to be sold, right? You know that is going to happen.
Oh, do it while you're still married,
That's
and
right.
you get the benefit of the capital gain.
That's right. Do it while you're still married. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And so how might people arrange to do that in the middle of the divorce?
Well, so they can call someone like me up, right? And I come over, we give them evaluation of their house, we talk through the process and put their house on the market. And then that is part of it. So, as you know, Georgia's equitable distribution state. So if you know that's it, and if you have an amicable divorce, right, that makes it easier. But even when you don't, if you know that that's part of it, it's a smart play, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just have a conversation with me. I'll give you the facts, and then you make the decisions, right? You make the decisions what's best for your family. But I feel like if you know all of these things, you know that you might be able to assume a conventional loan. You know about the $500,000. You know about these different things that are unique to spouses that are divorcing, unique to couples that are divorcing that own real estate. Then I feel like you're just better prepared to make the decisions, right? Mm-hmm. And then we go from there based on the decisions that you make.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Anything else? Any other like shockers like that? That seems like another very good one.
Right. So those
I'm
are.
learning something today.
Good. So those are the two big ones. Other things that I think is probably worth talking about, because this is something that attorneys come in on a lot, is self-sabotage. Right.
So does someone have to have an attorney to work with a certified divorce real estate expert?
No, they do not, right? So absolutely not. I had a couple actually that divorced last year, and they called me up. I've known them forever, and they called me up, and we sold their house, and they were very amicable about it, and they wrote up their own contract, took it to a judge, and the judge agreed, and we sold their house as part of it. And, we talked through it. We talked through equitable distribution because one of them had made a large deposit, a large down payment prior when they bought that house that had come from the sale of a previous home before they were together, right? So she brought in a lot of equity into the new home that the other one had not. So she wanted that equity out when they sold the house. So she wanted, the top, let's say it was $50,000. She wanted that top $50,000 and then take the rest of the equity and divide it equally. And the spouse agreed, and so that's what we did, right? And so that was in basically the decree, the agreement that they wrote up amongst themselves, and that was, filed.
Yeah.
But then that's what the closing attorney gets as well, right? So that down the road, when that divorce does go through, it's like, okay, here was the agreement. This is how the property was sold. And then they were still married, so they got the benefit because they, if you have over $250,000 in equity, if you're still married, then you can get the benefit up to the $500,000. So.
And so when you're being engaged, do you represent spouse one, spouse two, both spouses? How does that work?
So technically, if there is only one spouse on the title of the property, technically that would be the spouse that I represent, right? Because that's who is selling the property. So just from a standpoint of broker-client relationship, as a trained neutral, though, we're going to engage with both spouses. We're going to have equal but separate communication. So one of the things I do, so let's say it's a new listing and one of them is living in the house, the in-spouse we'll call, and the other one has already moved out, the out-spouse. So one of the first things I'm going to do is go over and take photos of the house and have a conversation. I'm just there to really take the photos. Have a conversation, see the condition of the property. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to schedule a Zoom. And I'm going to have the same call with the in-spouse and the same call with the out-spouse. Who knows when the last time the out-spouse right? I just did one not too long ago. The outspouse hadn't been in the house in 4 years. So who knows how long they've been in, it's been since they've been in there. Condition speaks to the sellability of a property, right? How much is that equity position? What is a buyer looking at? What does a buyer want, right? Buyers want move-in ready homes. If it needs paint and carpet and there's trash everywhere and the plumbing doesn't work or the power's out or mold has grown somewhere, I mean, it's a problem. So we've got to talk through those and what's the best way? What's the best way to get this property sold? Right? Sometimes it's to go in and do repairs. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's to bring an investor in. There's just all kinds of, there's a lot of answers. There's a lot of different ways to get from point A to point B. But we have that separate but equal communication because we're not here to choose sides. So even if a spouse isn't on title, doesn't mean that spouse isn't involved in the transaction. Because they are, unless the divorce decree says that they're not.
And so when you're involved, it's usually by agreement of both the parties?
Yes.
Is there ever a situation where somebody's asked you to be involved and the other person doesn't want you involved?
Yes.
And what do you do in that kind of situation?
Yeah, it gets tricky, right? So when you're going into it, if they're both on title, and right? I mean, if a spouse is not on title and the one spouse is trying to sell the property, I mean, they can file to stop that. So usually what happens in that case is attorneys get hired, and then the attorneys will get together. And if the spouses cannot decide on a real estate agent, the attorneys will get together. Oftentimes, right, they give 3 names. And then a name is chosen, and that's who gets assigned, if you will, the case. And so that's who will go in and work it. So I go in, I try to explain, right? So it usually starts with a phone call from one of the spouses. And so I say, hey, I'm a trained neutral, so I want to have the same conversation with you that I'm going to have with your spouse. And so I try to establish that rapport, establish that trust, and come at it from, hey, I'm here to help. I'm here to be an advisor. I know a lot about this situation. I know a lot about real estate. Let me just get you where you need to go and answer your questions along the way. And a lot of times, both of them will get on board, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't. So I get a lot that, well, my friend's a real estate agent. Well, but see, then you get out of the neutrality of all of that. When a friend comes in, and then the other spouse feels like sides are chosen, right? And maybe it's not necessarily fair. So it can get tricky. So there's a lot of different ways to end up being the agent. But it starts out with the first conversation. And sometimes that first conversation comes from an attorney. Sometimes judges assign it. You just never know.
Well, you'd mentioned earlier that things have kind of been stagnant for 2 years in the housing market. Are there any kind of more recent trends that you're seeing in the current, as of January 2026, trends that you're seeing?
Yes, absolutely. So interest rates dropped, right? So they hit 5.5%. Well, I mean, they were anywhere between 5.5 is the lowest I saw. So interest rates dropped, and really this January has been the busiest January that I've had since COVID, right? COVID was crazy. Prior to that, I could tell you what every market was going to look like. It's like January, we take off. This is when real estate agents build their business and take off and just regroup because things don't really start happening until February. And it was just kind of this path, right? August slowed down. We all kind of knew what the year was gonna shape up like.
Yeah, the seasonal is normally predictable.
Right.
But this January, it's doing something different.
That's right. So COVID flipped all of that around, flipped all of that on its head, and it was just 12 months, just bam, 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 right, nonstop for 2 years. Then it got to be a little bit more predictable, and it slowed down, right? Well, interest rates were at 7%. I haven't seen 7% interest rates the whole time I've been in business, right? Not here, not local. But that's what happened last year. And so things did slow down. And I think a lot of it was an affordability issue, and it was interest rate driven. And then these people have these 3%, these 2.5% interest rates. It's hard to give that up to move on, even if the house no longer fits their needs. So 5.5, 5.75, that's a very normal, healthy rate, right? So people can start to say, okay, right? That's a rate I know. That's the rate I bought 10 years ago. That was my first rate, whatever it is. People can accept that rate. So there's been a lot more movement.
Yeah, psychologically.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's very psychological. So yeah, this January it's slammed. I'm not getting a day off. So, but buyers want, for the most part, buyers want move-in ready. I am seeing multiple offers. I was in 2 multiple offers just this past week. So there's some multiple offers going on, but it's in certain areas of town. It's not everywhere. In other parts of town, it's negotiations, right? Sellers have to negotiate. Builders are negotiating. I'm negotiating with 2 builders today for one of my buyers. Builders are negotiating. So there's the pendulum, I feel like, has swung, right? It was very seller driven during COVID, and then it swung back, and now it's just kind of settling in, where sellers are giving some, buyers are giving some, and it's just returning to a more normalized market.
And what I guess counties, areas have you personally bought in, or are you like really involved in? Like, you know these neighborhoods like the back of your hand. Like, this is your area.
Yes. So Gwinnett County. So I grew up in Gwinnett County. So I grew up in Duluth, and then I moved to Decula, and I lived there for 13 years. So really any part of Gwinnett County, I'm very, very familiar with. And then I'm in Hall County now, so I live there. So I'm very familiar with Hall County.
Okay, so you live in Hall County now.
Yep, I live in Hall County
because
now.
when you live somewhere, you really get to know like really well.
You do. You absolutely do. So Gwinnett and Hall are really like my backyard. That said, though, I do a lot in North Fulton. I do a lot in Forsyth, Jackson County. So a lot of 95% of my business actually is repeat and referral business. So kind of go where it takes you. So I work in 9 counties, but the majority of it is going to be Gwinnett and Hall County.
And if you were going to recommend, let's say like 2 different content creators or something, what for people who might be watching to go listen to learn more about real estate, either from, let's do from 2 different perspectives, from a homeowner's perspective or from like a realtor's, like where do you learn from? Where do you get like market trends and things?
Yeah, so for me, I'm actually involved in a coaching group, right? So I am coached by, it's a group called Impact, and they're an amazing group. So I am on weekly calls with them, and it's with agents around the country. So we all just kind of bounce everything off of each other. Obviously, National Association of Realtors, right? I'm a stats girl. I think numbers tell every story. So I read all of the stats, just like, National Association, you'll probably be interested by this. They put out a report, it was last year, that said that homeowners have 43 times the wealth of renters. 43 times. That's a big number. That's huge, right?
Yeah.
So I think these kind of things are worth putting out there and having these conversations in the public eye. So,
and 90% of the divorces that I deal with that have assets, the house, that's the big thing that there is. That's the treasure of the whole divorce.
It is, and this is why, like, don't trash it. Don't, right? Like, capitalize on that investment. You worked hard to get that equity and to make that money, and where else can you live and earn money at the same time? I mean, real estate's a great investment, and it's a great way to make money. And when things go wrong and go sour, it gives you kind of a jumping off point to start over, right? That equity position does.
So when somebody's in like a divorce, before, during, or after a divorce, and they want to reach out to you, how do they contact you?
So they can call me, right? So my cell phone number is very public. It's 678-575-0665. Or they can look on my website. There's actually a divorce guide on my website. My website is chrisalexrealestate.com, and my email is holly@chrisalexrealestate.com.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for
Thank
making time to
you.
meet with me today.
Thanks for having me.
I know I see you all the time, so I look forward to
Yes.
next time seeing
Me
you.
too, absolutely. I appreciate it, Russell.
All right, this has been the Dealing with Divorce podcast. Before, during, and after. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.